Okay, hello, good morning, everybody. I hope you're doing well. We're going to start because Billy, who's featuring as our guest, she has sessions today, so she can only stay with us for a minimum time. So we're going to start, and I guess others will join us as they come. Okay, so good morning. My name is Anita Riafi Esino. If you're joining us for the first time on our roundtable webinar series that we've been running for quite a while. And the idea is to bring us together as practitioners from all over, not just Ghana, to discuss some of our HR issues that are affecting us, or some of the HR practices or day-to-day areas that we need to be looking at, and for us to brainstorm and discuss together as leaders in our field. So today we're going to be talking about wellness and well-being because it's become a very important element of our HR strategy since COVID. It was always there, but it's become even more so now since COVID and since a lot of things have changed in terms of focus since the whole COVID scenario has occurred, which has opened our eyes to a lot of wellness and well-being issues. So it's important that as practitioners, we begin to always, as always, we're trying to lead ahead in what is happening, being driven, data-driven, insight-led, instead of waiting to be told. We should always be thinking about this. So today we're going to be looking at wellness. We're looking at wellness plans, how to improve productivity, how to make sure that there's sanity in the work in terms of people being able to manage their mental health, etc. And we're going to be having a conversation with Billy, who actually does a lot of work with organizations to kind of share with us some of the key and common issues that comes through some of her sessions that HR needs to be aware of, or some of you may not even be aware of because you don't obviously provide some of these services in your organization. So to kind of give you some insights, and then we're obviously going to break out into groups to have discussions and to leave here with some plan of action to either implement our awareness and well-being policy and practices and initiative we don't already have, or you're now going to go and put a business case together. And we'll look at, in one of the discussion points will be the key points HR will need to bring out in terms of business case. So that will be the second part of our discussion. So because we don't have a lot of time, I'm going to move on so that Billy can join us at the appropriate time. She's already even on. Okay, so this will be it. So some introductions when she come, I'll introduce her. But before then, I want to kind of talk about the topic. As I've said, wellness, in our functions of the HR, we have areas that we tend to focus on a lot more, like performance management, grievance and disciplinary, recruitment. And there are other functions which don't come up as much as they should, or we don't play, we saw some don't place as much importance on it. There may even be something, but it's not as focused as our performance management areas and remuneration areas. And that's wellness and well-being. And strategically, as an organization, this has to be very important because the welfare of your employees will definitely, as we go along, we will all agree, have an impact on productivity, right? But sometimes it's quite difficult for leaders to be able to determine what exactly should my wellness strategy be or my wellness program be. So that's the purpose of this conversation, for us to get an understanding as to really what is practical, what can we practically implement, what can we practically put to the leadership to even give us budget for, right? And what's the basic essentials that we should make sure we're doing. These are very, very important, all right? So before we do that, let's first understand, let's all put ourselves on the same grounding as to what we even mean by wellness, right? So I've got some definitions that I researched here. So one says that wellness is the state of being in good health, especially as an actively pursue your goals, right? So you need good wellness to pursue your goals. In the workplace, we've got employees trying to achieve all types of goals, all types of objectives. In order for them to do well, they need to have good health. Wellness is an act of practicing healthy habits on a daily basis to attain better physical and mental health outcomes. And this is very important now for us in a workplace because we all know, and if you haven't been experiencing it, the mental health issues have gone up a lot in the workplace. And please, when we talk about mental health, we're not talking about some of the people in our side of the world where we will see them walking around the streets. Mental health comes in different shapes and forms, and specifically in a workplace, one of the ones that we've seen happening is people being diagnosed with anxiety, stress, depression. These are what we're talking about here. All right. And then the quality of state of being in good health, especially as you actively seek goals. We can see that it's all around being in good health and actively seeking your goal, which means that when employees are not in this state, is definitely going to have an impact in every way, right? But then there's also well-being, because sometimes we interchangeably use the two words. They're very similar, but it's important we're also clear on what we mean by well-being, right? So well-being, when we're talking about it, is where we're looking at things like how people, so I've got here as well-being is a positive outcome that is meaningful for people and for many sectors of society, because it tells us that people perceive that their lives are going well, right? So that's your well-being. So wellness being all our health, well-being is a whole holistic view of everything. So it's a combination of your physical, mental, emotional, social health factors. So when we get our wellness right, generally speaking, it should speak to our well-being. It means that we're in good well-being. We're in good. We're okay. We have a good balance, right? And so for that reason, well-being is strongly linked to happiness and life satisfaction. So if someone is not in good physical or mental or emotional health, it's not great. It's going to impact their happiness level, right? Because when you don't feel well, you're not exactly feeling happy. If your mind is not at peace, you're not really going to be able to appreciate your happiness button. So the two things are different, but they interchangeably need to work together for us to get the full experience of both wellness and well-being. All right. Okay. Now, we're talking about this because research has revealed, there's a lot of research from the ILO and other health organization, World Health Organization, etc., on all these areas, right? But one that I found revealed that 60% of working professionals experience at least mild symptoms of anxiety. And I was just telling you about the fact that people are actually being diagnosed anxiety, which forms part of mental health, and 1 in 4 meet the threshold for clinically relevant symptoms of anxiety. So this is where if we are not having good initiatives, good detector mechanisms as the HR, it can escalate. People can maybe have mild anxiety where with a bit of time off, etc., they may be okay, into it going into depression and a bit more, right? So part of this conversation, especially when we get to policy, is how do we, we want to prevent things. We don't actually want things to happen, right? Because a strategic HR manager, a strategic HR leader is insight-led. We're trying to work ahead of ourselves and not reactionary-led. So that means we've got to think about how do we prevent, people going from mild to clinical symptoms, right, to going into extreme, right? That's what we want to be coming along with now. So before Billy comes on, just to sum up why it's important wellness and well-being, because it's crucial, right, to preventing and managing chronic illnesses, reducing stress and anxiety, improving cognitive functions, because it can actually have an impact on that. It promotes healthy relationships. Sometimes we don't understand why we have toxic employees, right? Or people who are having relationship problems in terms of with their peers and colleagues. Sometimes it may be stress, right? It can be they are having anxiety issues, or they're overburdened. We don't sometimes know, right? But that's the other thing. When people are in good wellness, it does improve an impact on their relationships. Enhances self-awareness, encourages personal growth and development. We have all these our L&D strategies and L&D programs. Sometimes people are not really growing or developing. We don't understand. We know someone is a performer, then all of a sudden it's all going pear-shaped. These are some of these things that could be factors, right? And when we look at metrics, maybe this will be some of the things we have to look at in terms of the metrics we're tracking to help us gauge and make decisions. Employee wellness is essential to business and organization success. It impacts the workplace culture, its resources and productivity. Greater levels of energy leading to higher outputs, fewer sick days, increased creativity and problem solving because all your cognitive functions are working, you're thinking well, you're happy, right? Increased motivation and attitude to work, okay? Decreased rate of injury and accidents. Those of you who are working in industries, right? Sometimes we just think someone is not paying attention or haven't paid attention to how to use a machine or how to do something, but it could actually be fatigue, anxiety, they're not in the right place and accidents are happening, injuries are occurring, which means our workmen compensation insurances are going up, the health and risk of our employees are going up, right? They're all interconnected. When we have a wellness and well-being policy and practices in place, we minimize, right? We're ideas to prevent and minimize some of these things. And that's the benefits of having it. Achieved company objectives, because we already know when people are in good state, they're more likely to be doing better at their goals. Improved employee morale, right? Because people are generally going to have, when they have imbalance, they're in good state, they're going to have a much higher level of enthusiasm, satisfaction, etc. So the morals are going to be up. And then, of course, what's very important to us is productivity, performance, right? Increased performance because employees are happy, right? They're in good health, right? Mentally and physically, okay? So now this brings me to Billy, right? Who I'm just going to unmute. Okay, she's unmuted. And Billy, some of you may already know, is in this space, right? She's an integrative psychotherapist and a wellness coach. And she's one of the leaders in Ghana on this in this area and more. So I thought it was very important that we have a conversation with her to really understand a lot more because that's her area of expertise. We have to know in areas for our function, but we're not experts in it. She is. So I'm going to invite Billy to maybe give us a brief intro to herself, and then we're going to engage in the conversation. And please, as we engage in the conversation, if you have questions, do put them in a chat box and I will read them out to Billy to answer. And also do take notes for later on when Billy drops out and we go into our groups to have discussions. You may want to pick up on some of her points to kind of come back when you come back to feedback from when we break out. All right. Okay. So good morning, Billy. Thank you so much for honoring my invitation. I know like today is very tight for you. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. You are welcome.
Hi. Before we start, you have to know that I'm totally clueless when it comes to these multi-Zoom meetings. Most of the time, I don't really see, and I'm just so clueless. I think it's my generation. I'm used to the one-to-ones, but I assume from what I see, we have 37 participants. So do you see me? Am I here?
You're not on the cameras. You have to open you have to click your camera so we can see you.
Oh my God, you see, now straight away we have, let me see.
It should be the camera, it should say video actually, not camera, it should say video. It should be next to your microphone.
Yeah, it's there. It's there.
It's not.
Let me see. Okay. Oh my goodness, this is gonna be one of those, don't worry. Share screen. Can I share screen? No, I can't share screen.
Did you want to share something with us? Because I can stop sharing and you can share.
No, I just want to show my face. Let me see.
Have you seen the video? It should be to your left.
To my left, okay. At the bottom.
Yeah, and you should say mute. You have the microphone, you know, the thing that looks like the microphone, then you have like what looks like a camera.
Yeah, it's already on because if I press it, it says stop video. So let me see.
Okay, then we can't see you. Why can't we see you? I can see your.
Let me switch to my phone. I'm so much more used to my phone. Let me see if I can be there. Okay, start. I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
Like I said. Okay. Anyway, first of all, what I wanted to say is thank you so much for having me. And here we you see me?
Not
No.
yet, but I'm sure we will eventually.
Let me restart. Let me restart on my phone. I think it'd be much easier. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I know what to do with my phone. I did it on my laptop because I wanted to see everybody, but sorry. Okay.
Okay. So whilst Billy joins us, she'll come back. I'll just share with you some insights from some of the activities that we at OML, I've been doing around wellness, and why I feel this topic is very important, because sometimes with these topics, we sometimes feel like it's more picked up more in the developed nations or outside. And I wanted to talk about it because I wanted to share with you all that actually there's a lot happening on the continent, right, concerning wellness and well-being, and we've got to pick that up. Okay, Billy's back, so maybe I'll touch on that when she drops out. Hello, we can see you now.
Oh, you can? Oh, great, fantastic. That's great. Okay, so I heard you when I logged on a little bit a few minutes ago about the importance of wellness and well-being in the workplace. So I work with individual clients, but for many years I've worked with corporate organizations trying to make wellness more friendly, and also to address the fact that employee wellness needs to be at the top agenda of HRs, because HRs are, for me, the middle person between management and the employees. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So what I wanted to ask is, you, Anita, let's say, what is your view, your personal view of how wellness needs to be implemented in the workplace?
Yeah, I believe that, number one, the wellness agenda sits with the HR, right? And HR has to put the business case, and then HR has to champion to make sure that is implemented. And the way for it to be implemented, well, for what I've seen work personally, is to get the buy-in of the leadership, is to make sure that the wellness strategy also taps into the wellness of the leadership, right? Because if you get a buy-in of the leadership, one, for them to understand the importance in terms of our productivity, the fact that if your employees are not in good place, it does affect performance. We know this for a fact because we track the analytics. And so getting them on board, but also making sure that they play a role, because sometimes what we've seen with wellness strategies is that it's kind of, the top is cut off. So there may be some budget has been put, but the top is cut off. And they themselves also need to be on wellness programs, right? Because they are also carrying a lot of challenges. So for me, for me, for it to work, the strategy has to be holistically across the whole organization. We get the buy-in from the leadership. We ensure the wellness initiatives includes the leadership, and HR has to champion. Outside of that, the important thing also is tracking what is happening, right, on the analytics. So we got to define what we're trying to get our wellness initiatives to achieve. So let's say, for example, if we have you speaking to our employees, counseling them, we need to engage you and say, what are the common issues, right? Is it anxiety? Is it stress? Is it workload? So that we are able to pick those information, and then we are able to go and see, okay, how are we going to manage this? Like, how are we going to improve this? So that's also very important, because it's not just about implementing a gym, right? Do you get what I'm saying? Or saying the person should just go and speak to Billy. We also have to attract, and we also have to track its effectiveness and keep improving, right, to make sure that it works. So for me personally, from what I've seen work and my own personal view, is that it has to be at the top of the strategy, and the leadership must be part of it from the beginning. Yeah, and we have to track what we're doing.
Yeah, it must be part. Yeah, exactly. It needs to be part of it, but it needs to take part as well. What I mean is, I usually see an organization as a body, the head is the head. If the head is stable, it would usually trickle down to the feet. You see, every single part of your body will be stable if the head is stable. So once the head understands the benefits of wellness and well-being, then they would understand why the rest of the organization needs it. When you were talking about some of their needs, we also have to know that family life, personal life will trickle into the workspace. So it's not always about the load of the work or the hours, or it's what are they bringing from home, which is most of the time the case in what I've encountered. So I think if HR could be also sensitive to that, when they say, oh, I need to take 2 days because my wife is sick. It's not just the fact that 2 days my wife is sick, is what preceded that. How long has your wife been sick? What's going on? And what is your headspace while you're at work? His or her headspace will be partially in the home, so all this needs to be understood. What I've encountered in organization with wellness is a lot of neglect, personal neglect, because they're so focused on the work. They need to do the work. They don't want to lose their job. So they will push themselves to limits that is really, really unhealthy. So you can see it impacted in their lack of sleep, their diet, their lack of personal, I won't say hygiene, but the way they look, and all these are flags for the HR. The HR needs to be really mindful and attentive to how the employees come in. If you see a little change, sometimes just a little words, are you okay? What's going on? Do you need any help? But on the personal level, it cannot always be about the work, because without their personal life, they won't be able to come to work. So and also
I wanted to ask you, I think last week I was on a leadership retreat with very senior people, and I got them to do this leadership crest shield thing, which was all about self-exploration, them understanding themselves as leaders. And I'm telling you that there were about 40 leaders, right? And each and every one of them, and I'm bringing this up because this is a challenge for the HR. Each and every one of them, this point you made about sleep and personal came up, right? So the sleep was that they were working very long hours. They were going to bed very late. There literally wasn't a barrier, boundaries between work and their personal life. Even if they stopped, they were coming back to work. And I understand the type of organization it is. I understand it. But my point to them was, if you drop dead tomorrow, we'll replace you, right? So you've got to manage it. And then the other thing you said about personal, because we explored emotional intelligence. And I did this exercise with them called Killer Words. And some of them were sharing the types of words sometimes they are using on their subordinates, right? Because of stress and anxiety, things like you not amount to anything, they're shouting, and some of them acknowledge that it's just the fact that they are having issues of balance, issues at home, stress with their workload, and so on. And then they are having to obviously manage these people. And these people are at the top of the organization. They are HODs, they are in the director level, general levels. They are supposed to be able to cope from their feedback. They are this position, they are supposed to be able to cope. But a lot of them wasn't coping. And I guess my question to you is not also easy to get these people to acknowledge and to sometimes to do things that we know are good for them. So maybe you can share with us some tips or some strategies that you've used or you've seen others using where it's helped to get them to also seek the help, right? Because getting them to buy in, so we can usually do that, but getting them to also use the what we were saying at the beginning, implementing, like use the service, think about their wellness, is a challenge. It's a challenge. We had to go literally out of Accra into some remote place to make sure that nobody will go to the office, nobody can do any work, but just be there, present in a space. We had to take them away. That was the only way we could achieve the objective, right? So some guidance there, I think, would really, really help. Because some of us deal with very, very strong personalities. Yeah. I think you've muted.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Some of the personalities comes with the role that they have. You know, in Ghana, everything is there's hierarchies. Okay, when you're in the high chair, let's say, you have to be treated a certain way. And also you have to be viewed as perfect. You know, you don't have issues. So when we start bringing the word mental health to a head of an organization, straight away you're going to get, you know, a pushback. It's like, there's nothing wrong with me, right? So what I usually do when I enter an organization space, as well as I'm seeing employees in my wellness room, I would invite myself to his or her office and offer an informal session. For me, it's very formal, but they view it as informal. Okay. For me to start, you know, finding out, oh, so how do you sleep? How is your eating habits? You know, the whole process that I would do with the employees as well. Okay. But for them, it's not a session. And also, I don't like the word counselor. I don't like the word psychotherapist. To me, it's all about emotional support. Everybody needs emotional support, and it's valid. It's very valid. You cannot go to someone, you're invited to a therapy session. It's like, I'm not going. There's nothing wrong with me. Because once you start mentioning those, it's like you are basically saying that there's something wrong with them and they cannot cope. You see? So you cannot approach somebody and say, you can't cope, you've been booked for a therapy session. So I would always switch and say, invite them for an emotional support chat. That's what I personally, I don't know about other therapists, you know, but that's how I've labeled myself. Wellness coach. When I say wellness coach, it's because I deal with the mind, the body, and the spirit. If I know that your state of mind is going to affect your body, right, then definitely you're not going to be fit for work. So I have to deal with your whole body. It's like if you have a headache, I cannot give you a paracetamol because the headache is just a symptom of something else going wrong with you. So I would go straight to the source. What's going wrong? What is it? It could be anything, you know, and a lot of them are stressed because they do not address the emotional issues. You know, I have a lot of people with diabetes, hypertension, backaches, digestion problem. It starts in the mind. It really starts in the mind. It's self-inflicted, self-manufactured. So once you have transcended from mental or emotional to physical, that's when the work is impacted because they can't come to work. They cannot come to work. And I also try to advise companies to, when they have, you know, those medical insurance, right? To include psychotherapy, and they don't. They don't. And for me, it's a win-win. It's a win-win for me.
I wanted to make a point on that. You know, in our environment, I'm sure when we come back on our discussions, the leaders will also speak to this, but you know, in our culture generally, we're not really encouraged to speak to people. Even your friend, you're not encouraged to talk about your personal issues with others. You're supposed to, you know, keep everything at home or deal with things. So it doesn't come naturally for people to want to share. So one of the things that for, you know, the generation that are coming, that's our millennials and those, the younger generation, we have seen that obviously tenacity, ability to deal with pressure and workload are nowhere near what we would say in the other generational levels of baby bloomers and things. You know, it doesn't take them long to start crumbling and falling apart. At the same time too, they are also under that umbrella of, you know, you have to find a way to cope with things. So with some of our clients, and I want to hear what you think about this, we've implemented the medical apps. So those medical apps, which the companies have subscribed to, allows them to tap into services that we've sourced in. So speaking to a counselor, having medical checks, assessments, etc. And some of these companies that are providing the apps are also connected to physical hospitals, etc. If I just use Ghana, in Ghana, right? Because the platform is not just for Ghana, but for each one where they are tapping into, they do have physical connections to hospitals and professionals in that jurisdiction. And we have found that the millennials are using that. So now what it means is that they can actually access a counselor from the comforts of their own home, right? And nobody has to know that I'm talking to Billy, right? Yeah, because I'm in my room. Nobody, even HR doesn't have to know, right? What my problem is, because sometimes, you know, some people don't feel comfortable talking to their HR or their manager. They don't want to, right? For whatever reason.
Of course.
These medical, we found that it helps, but because they are having virtual conversations. Those who have physical, it will be someone like yourself. They can have physical one-to-ones as well if they opt for that. And I just want to know what your thoughts are on, as a way of encouraging people to actually start to deal with some of these emotional issues that we know forms a foundation to a lot of other things. Do you think the option of having these, being able to access via an app or in your own personal space is a good idea as a wellness coach? Or do you think like we should be championing more of the face one-to-ones, or a combination, like a hybrid approach?
I think a hybrid is good. Yeah, I think a hybrid is good. But you know, Anita, words are very powerful. If you're going to say counselor on the app, you're going to close the door on many people. Right?
Okay.
Because everybody knows what the idea of a counselor is. I mean, for those who've been to university, you usually go to the counselor when you have a problem. Yeah. If you go to a psychotherapist, once you hear the word psycho, you're going to close the door. You know, when I first started in Ghana 20 years ago, psychotherapist, I was like, but I'm not mad. So no, I'm not to prevent you.
So
from
are you
being
saying
mad.
that we've got to stop using the traditional words, because that is already affecting people adopting the help? Because when you hear psychotherapist, counselor, you automatically assume that means something is wrong with me.
Exactly.
And so we should be
even though
like
there is something imbalanced about you. You need emotional support. Emotional support is a beautiful combination of words. Emotional support. You know, when I changed my title to emotional support or wellness coach, so many Ghanaians came. When I first came, I had the expats and I had the French, because I am French. So I did my French people, and those who knew what psychotherapy was about came to me. But I could never walk into a bank and say, I want to see the bank manager and offer him psychotherapy. It would end at the front desk. It's like, okay, madam, and my thing would just go in the bin straight away, you know. So emotional support. When I started using the word emotional support, word of mouth started spinning. I work on word of mouth alone. I do not advertise myself, because to me, you've tried it, you liked it, you refer me. You know, and the level of Ghanaians I have is unbelievable. The level of Ghanaian men I have is even more unbelievable.
So the men, we sometimes also think it's just the women, but what you're saying is that our men are also are much. There's more. They are actually tapping into that support, right?
Men are more in need of emotional support than women for many reasons. First of all, that the pressure to provide, the pressure to the professional side of things, like I'm the man. And also from childhood, men don't have problems. Little boys don't have problems. You're not supposed to have problems. You're not supposed to cry. You're not supposed to go and chat to anybody about anything. Women usually have a network of other women that they can discuss things with. They have their mothers, their sisters, their aunties, their friends. Men don't have that because they have to be macho from birth. Okay. So when I have many times, it's unbelievable. I would have a wife send their man, husband, boyfriend to me. They would come reluctantly. It's like, she sent me. Okay, that's great. So what do we start with? I have nothing to say. I don't know what to say. I don't have problems. I say, it's okay. It doesn't have to be a problem. Tell me about what's going good. Tell me about what's going good. Within 10 minutes, we dive into what's going wrong. And instead of 1 hour, they usually stay 2 hours or 3 hours because they've suddenly been given the space to talk in a non-judgmental, platform. I have many men who book 2-hour sessions at a time, Ghanaian men. And a lot of them are CEOs and everything you can think of. Because it's like, oh, I don't have to pretend to be what I'm not. Because they don't. All these people, they have the belief that they have to be of, a certain, exactly. They have to be a certain way to be respected, not just in their family, but in the workplace. They need so much support. I mean, over the years since I've been in Ghana, I've heard a lot of young men committing suicide, more than women.
Yeah.
More than women. That tells you the need. To reach that level is because you feel that there's no other solution. They've tried everything. They've tried everything. It's a great need. So I would encourage all CEOs and, head of companies and everything to seek emotional support. That is a priority. Once they're level-headed, right? I've seen the change in one of the companies that I worked with. I worked with the CEO for some weeks. And it's like the ground staff could not believe that this man was coming to the canteen. They've never seen him. He was coming to the canteen. Hey guys, how are you? Everything okay? He used to go on every floor every morning. And it's like, what's wrong with him? It's like, what's he doing? They couldn't believe that he was now connecting to his people because he realized through sessions that he was also a human being. He was just like them. He just had another job.
Yeah.
And it was incredible that the whole place became vibrant. They wanted to do well because of him. Because of him. So I always start with the head. The head, the HR needs to make emotional support available to the head.
For the head.
And offer it in such a way that you need it. You need it, not because there's something wrong with you, but you need it so that you understand what we're going to offer the employees. Even if you address it that way, as a head of company, it's really his or her duty to do that.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
It's very, very important because he or she is also dealing with anxiety, with family relationship issues, maybe with substance abuse that, maybe he drinks or whatever, or she drinks, Some of them also have past, traumas, sexual abuse. So many, it's rampant in Ghana. And it's so quiet.
Unfortunately,
so quiet. And you know how much destruction that can do to somebody's life through the years. It affects their relationship, affects their relationship to the other gender. It affects their relationship with their children and the rest of the family because they've been abused and they can't talk about it to anyone. It's taboo. I have many people who come here who've been sexually abused, and they say, you're the only one that knows. And they're like in their 50s. You know.
And I think that's something that I think from the HR perspective is now we now have to accept that human capital management is gone beyond usually, we had this sympathetic, we are now an empathetic, we have to be empathetic HR leaders, which means we have to think a bit more beyond just the day-to-day and what the policy says. The human element has to come in because what we're saying is, before when we even look at wellness, if I'll be honest, in the early days of wellness, we're just thinking about someone has to go to the gym. We were coming from a very mechanical perspective, right? But now COVID taught us a lot when we saw our leaders crumbling, when we saw empathy crumbling. I mean, the whole workplace just went into chaos, right? We
Yeah,
now
yeah, yeah.
realize that no, we've been championing traditions that are not, yes, there are key bits that still work, but the vast majority had to change. And this is what part of it. We've not usually felt is kind of our business to kind of be getting into people's space because we don't feel comfortable with it, because that's not really part of our job description. What we're saying is, whether we like it or not, personal issues have impact on our employees, our leaders. Not just productivity, but even the way managers or even colleagues treat themselves. I mean, I was very shocked when we did the killer words. You know, I mean, I do these all the time, but some words that people are saying, this was sometimes I use on my subordinate. I have to tell you, I have to tell them, this one is hard, you know, because you also know
what
that
were they using?
things like you amount to nothing, you are nothing. And when I explored, it was that these words have been used on them when they were young,
Thank you.
right? So it felt normal. And I had to explain to them that when you say that to a subordinate, even to a colleague, that's demoralizing, that's disabling them, that's literally dismantling them, right? Because their confidence, their esteem is under attack by this statement, you know, and we have to explore it, you know, and with people saying it to them, and for them having to explore, what did it sound like to you? How did you feel? You know, and the point I'm making is that organizations don't all have resources or the buy-ins, like some organizations, to do these types of exercises with their leaders. They are working in places where some are even owners of business. They don't have time for this, but the HR knows that this is important. Do you see what I'm saying? And that's why we are also saying it has to start from the top, because if the top doesn't buy in to what we're saying, it becomes difficult to now cascade it down. And we have to find a way to get the tops to buy in, because they also have a big influence on the rest of the employees. Because I'm very sure that when you've had the employee level come to you, some of their issues that are not personal, but are work related, are trickling back to their managers, right? Maybe you want to share some of those points for the practitioners to understand the role the managers play in also impacting negatively on the employees. That can obviously affect performance and a whole lot of problems that we are usually having to deal with.
You know, when I usually talk to HR teams from different companies, I always emphasize on the word human.
Yeah.
The human component of human resource. Once you focus on that, it's like a whole box opens. Okay.
Yeah.
I always say every single department manager needs to be educated and sensitized to wellness. When they are sensitized to wellness, they will be able to scan the room of their department and flag who needs support, because they might not come to HR voluntarily, because sorry to say, Anita, but you know very well that HR is like the place where you don't want to be called. You don't want to go there. You need to be invisible to HR. You know, it's like, please don't let Anita see me. There's nothing wrong with me. Please, you know, not just you. I'm just joking, but every HR.
No, but it's a problem we are trying to deal with. We don't want HR to be seen that way, but you are right. That is how a lot of them see it.
Every HR, not just Ghana, every HR in the world needs to change the way they are seen. And by activating the human component of human resource, you will change. And also, they need to see HR participating in wellness support exercises. I mean, I've implemented wellness days on a monthly basis. Have a wellness day. The wellness day comprises not just the emotional support, it includes massage, diet. I mean, I would go in an organization and start dealing with the mind, body, and the spirit of that organization. I would go in the kitchens of the canteen and start looking at, what are you feeding your people? What are you feeding your people? Portions are ridiculous. The oil is ridiculous. The sugar is ridiculous. Too much carbs. That will affect your troops. It will affect your people. You know, so all this is part of the mind, body. You know, that's why I'm a holistic therapist, because to me, You cannot heal the brain and the body doesn't follow. It's not possible, you know.
Wow.
So yeah, exactly. So if every company that you deal with in terms of HR, you can start implementing a mind and body initiative within the company, you will start seeing, yeah. And also be mindful of how long your employees work for. That was something that I had to fight long and hard about. People are afraid to lose their jobs. There's so many redundancies, exercise being done all over the world. People would come to work at 7 and leave at 9 in the evening. And I'm talking about women with young children. They don't see their kids. They don't see their husbands or their wives. And once the wellness at home depreciates, it will start affecting the work. So it's a win-win. You have to, work-life balance is not a term that we throw around like that. It's very, very important. If you see an employee putting on weight, there's something going on. There's something going on. It's not about, you know, investing in the gym in the workplace. There's something happening, you know. So all these things, and also from the time I've been here, I know that Ghana tends to point a lot, you know, they criticize a lot, each other, and it doesn't help. It doesn't help.
It's kind of this blame,
you know, because
culture.
People become self-conscious, yes, not just blame culture, but also talking about each other, criticizing each other, you know, condemning and all. It doesn't help because everybody has problems. Everyone, trust me. Trust me. The famous and the richest come to my office and it's like, they have the same problem as the guy who cleans their car at a different level. Same.
Yeah.
The same. You know, so I think we need to familiarize ourselves with what wellness is about. Wellness is a gentle word. It's like a soothing. It's like you come and it's like, oh, so, you know, tell me about yourself. What's going on? You know, make them relaxed. It's not like you're going to the doctor's surgery or the hospital and you're being grilled and then they give you medication. It doesn't work like that. You know, so every employee in an environment, in a workspace, needs to have at least one session a month, unless they don't need it. One session a month, but I guarantee you they all need it. And I know it's costly, but it's better to deal with that and to pay a therapist to come to the workplace or to have access to a therapist than to have to pay medical bills or them not showing up for weeks because now they have diabetes or they, you know, all sorts of crazy things, you know. So I'm into the prevention business. I'm trying to prevent you from getting sick, you know. And sometimes mental health is very subtle. When you see somebody snapping, somebody getting angry easily, or somebody getting depressed, it's not instant, it's gradual, it happens slowly. And you need, every manager in every company needs to be sensitized to that. What's going on with that person? And every floor can have a wellness champion, you know that?
Yeah, exactly.
What I mean,
I wanted to ask you what you thought about, you know, that I guess we're going to have a further discussion when you drop off, but the idea of wellness champions, you know, where just like how we have, you know, fire wardens and they're actually trained on how to be champions.
Exactly.
And, you know, because like, for example, I always say when it comes to things like bullying and harassment, that the mere fact someone is the HR doesn't mean they're the ones who have to chair that session or that they have to be the contact person. It may be somebody else totally different that's been trained to handle that because it's very sensitive. It has to be dealt with in a certain way. It's the same way that wellness champion doesn't have to be the line manager. It's about identifying the right personality, temperaments, and then training them on what it means so that, because confidentiality is a very key part of this, and then having these outside of the HR, right? Assuming that we are on that point of view that people's view of the HR is not always that they can kind of come to the HR, having wellness champions that they know can go to may also help. And then, of course, the very serious ones that obviously has to be with professionals like yourselves and that. But champions may be good just to sound off if they've been trained. They play a key role. I don't know what you think about
I
wellness
think
champions.
it's
I mean,
necessary. I
yeah.
mean, I implemented that in corporate organizations before. A champion needs to be somebody who is empathetic, okay,
Yes.
discreet,
Yes.
non-judgmental. And I know
Yeah.
sometimes it's hard, but they need to be trained, right? And they need to be approachable.
Yeah.
All that person needs to be is somebody on that floor that is the champion. Everybody knows that's the champion. And champions don't have to be forever. You can rotate champions on that floor, because next week it could be you. And the week after it could be me. You know, you need to be, and also that is teaching people, you know. So the champion can deal with the surface of what the problem is. You don't have to tell them your business. I need help. I need support. Can you please, you know, get me access to a therapist if they want to say the word, or I need emotional support. And emotional can also include physical. It can include physical or financial or anything else. Wellness is wellness. Yeah. So sorry, Anita, I have to go. You know where I have to go now. And I've got 3 minutes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Billy, for your time. It's been so insightful. You see me noting down lots of things, because as we engage in our conversation, I'm going to be putting it to the leaders as they break into their groups. But I think the key thing for me that from this conversation that you've said is that we have to focus at the top, and we also have to make sure that whatever is implemented, the top are included, as the CEOs, CFOs, and then we should focus on prevention, and now making sure we familiarize ourselves with what wellness is from the very top down to the HR to everybody. We should do that. And then we just, you mentioned some of the key 3 things I picked up as factors, issues, was personal neglect, and also that people bringing the home into the workplace. Sleep is also another one, and the whole anxiety and stress. So that's something that HR, that very, very much sits under our umbrella to brainstorm now how we're going to deal with some of these things. And then the key fundamental point is the emotional support. And us perhaps avoiding traditional words like counseling, psychotherapist, therapist, which generally people don't respond well to. So using maybe things like coaches, support, other words that people can not feel like they're being judged, or that there's something wrong with them, but would actually encourage them to take up the support, right? And of course there's more, but these are the highlights that I've picked. So I know you have to go. So did you want to have your final words?
Final words, okay. The final word for me is HR needs to enforce, right, every single employee and themselves to have their medicals regularly. Many times I've gone into an organization and I asked them, when was the last time you had a medical? Oh, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever. In everybody's contract is, you need to do it every year. If you have someone with a medical condition like diabetes or whatever, it needs to be more frequent than that. I have picked up some mental disorders based on their medicals because of the mind and body link. You see, if somebody has, let's say, an anger issue, definitely it will attack their liver. I send them for a medical, Lord and behold, they have liver problems. And that is something that is very, very important. They need to have their medicals, and they need to be empowered with that medical. You can't go and have a medical and I say, so how was your blood pressure? Oh, they say it was okay. No, what was it? Give me some digits, give me some numbers. What was it? So I've always tried to empower employees to know what their medical status is, because it's highly important to me and to them.
Wow.
Your blood pressure might be okay with this doctor, and with this other doctor, they will give you medication. because they have to take your age, your weight, and everything else into consideration. So it's very important. Empowering yourself with your state is priority. Priority.
Absolutely.
Let's say somebody collapses on the work floor and you don't know, oh, this person was borderline diabetic, and you see them at the canteen eating fufu and this and that. You, as the champion, will say, my friend, are you supposed to be eating this? You understand? It's like they push it, as long as they're at work, they're okay. So there are many, many, many components to make sure the body of this organization is functioning at its best. So that's my final words.
Thank you so much. I think what's insightful is the link between anger and having liver problems. We would never know these things, but you've that explanation just showed just how deep it is, and how we can't take certain even emotional actions lightly. Have a connection.
I've had employees having cirrhosis of the liver and they've never touched a drop of alcohol. It's purely anger. We'll have to go into this in another session, but if you understand
look at
the link between the mental, the emotional, and the body, there's a lot that people will stop.
Thank you so much, Billy. Thank you. I know you have to go. But I think that may be a good education for us as well, to understand the mental and the physical. Perhaps we can arrange that on another time, because I think it will be good for us. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye. Well, leaders, as we can see, this area is not a joke, right? It's very serious, and we have to have a plan, right? Some of you already, I'm very sure, are doing lots of things, and I'm sure as we now go on to talk about this, we're going to find out what some of you are doing. But I think from the conversation, you realize that wellness is on a different level. It's not like the traditional wellness that we knew before, where we would just have, people having gym access, or, it takes some days off. It's a bit deeper than that. It's gone from the mind to the emotions to physical areas that, to be fair to us, when we go and do our HR training, that those elements don't come in that way for us, right, to address. But now, of course, being continuously improving practitioners, we have to learn, right? We have to adapt to what is happening, all right? So that moves us into our discussion. And as you know, in the roundtables, this means that we're going to break out into groups to have conversations, and then we're going to come back into the group for the group leads to tell us what the groups discuss and share with us their insights. So the first, I wanted to just highlight a few things as you break into your groups, because you're going to be talking about it. We've heard a lot of the things Billy says, and I summarized some of them. But it's important, as we're looking at this, that we should understand that what we're saying is that this issue is both personal and workplace. It's as we can see, it's quite difficult for us to separate the two. So when we start this conversation, please, let's bear that in mind as we look at issues, and then also when we move on to look at strategies and metrics and all of that. All right. So the first discussion point that we're going to have, and I'm going to break us into groups in a minute, is that we need to look at what are our wellness issues in a workplace, because some organization may have more, others not. So first of all, what are they? So in your discussions, I want you to look at that. What are some of the issues that you're having in terms of wellness? And then also, what can HR do about it? So I want, in your feedback, I want you to be able to pick 2 areas in your feedback that HR can work on. Okay, and please, we don't want barriers, we want solutions. So there's so many things, even in this conversation we've had, there must be things that HR can pick up and do. So I want you to, in your groups, come back with that. And then also you're discussing, how will HR get management buy-in to address wellness issues? And me and Billy, in the conversation, we touched on that. We are agreeing that management at the top needs to buy in. We already know the issues there. but how are we going to address that? How are we going to get the buy-in? And we have also understood that they must be part of the solution. Initiatives must include them. So I want you in your groups to have a conversation about the general issue, how HR is going to go about it. Pick 2 minimum areas in your feedback on how HR is going to go about it and how HR is going to get the buy-in, right? How are you getting the buy-in from the top? How are you even going to get the top to even participate, right? And so on. And then in the second part, we're going to look at policies and analytics. So this first part is for you to explore this issue. You've heard a lot about it in the discussions we just had, and now we need to go into actually having a discussion. So as always, I'm going to break us into groups. Okay, so I'm going to do a group of 7. We should put about 8 to 10 people in a group. So I'm creating a group, and as you know, it will automatically assign you to a group. The intention being that if you're here in teams, you're not talking to your colleague. So you end up in groups with different people. Each time I break out, you'll be in different groups. So room 1, I've got Abu Bakar, then I have an iPhone, I have Edem, Francis, Jess, Nee, Richard, Vanessa, and Yusuf in group 1. In group 2, I have Abigail, I have Elishila, Gertrude, Hope, Mansa. Then I have a Samsung, Sandra in group 2. Group 3, I have, let me just bring it down. In group 3, I have Amanda, Benny's, Betty, Davida. Then there's some Miss Bright, Tete, KP, Peter, and Rebecca. And in group 4, room 4, I have Courage, Gloria, Humphrey, Ivy, Joycelyn, Pamela, and Solace. And then in room 5, I have Akosia, I can't pronounce this one, Gladys, Herbert, Samuel, Sperry, and Yvonne. And then room 6, I have Andrew, Effie, Elizabeth, Florence, Godfrey, Justina, Portius, and Solomon. And then the last room, which is room 7, I have Abigail, Amanda, Edith, Lynn, Marianne, Mavis, and Nana. So when I open the rooms, it will automatically flash on your screen. All you need to do is just click it and it will put you to the group that it has assigned you, all right? So I'm opening all rooms. I'm going to give us 10 minutes to discuss the points. What are our awareness issues? What can HR do about it? What minimum 2, 3 areas would HR feedback on? How does HR get management to buy in? What will it be doing, right? And also to participate in initiatives. So kindly have this conversation, and then please choose someone in your group who will give us the key points when we return back in the room. I'm going to give you 10 minutes. So I'm opening the rooms now. Please look at your screens. When it pops up, you join, all right? So we'll have 10 minutes. And just before the time is up, you will see a notification that will flash to tell you that I'm closing the rooms, and then we will all come into the space. So you should now be seeing your the join screens coming up on your screens. So have a good discussion, and then we'll come back in 10 minutes, which would be at, it's 11:10 now. So we'll be back at 11:20. I'll be closing the rooms. Thank you very much. And I look forward to hearing your feedback. So you should have the join screen popping up in front of your screens. You just need to click it and it will take you to your room, to your group for your discussion. And we are discussing what are the wellness issues in the workplace? What can HR do about it? Please take in mind all the discussions we had with Billy in this. What is HR, how is HR going to get buy-in? How is HR going to make sure that leadership also participate in initiatives directed at them? Is what we're discussing in this first part. So you should now, I can see most people are in their groups. You should now have a flash in front of you to join your group, all right? It should come up on your screen, and you just need to click it to join, all right? Okay. All right. So we'll be back at 11:20. So I'm going to join. I'll be probably hopping in and out of rooms just to listen to what people are saying. And then we'll do the general feedback when we come back. All right.
Hello, Anita. Can you kindly add me to group one? I had problem with the network, so I went out. Hello.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I've closed the rooms now, so they should be, your group one should all be coming back now.
Oh, okay.
Okay, don't worry. So the next section, I know I'll have to add you to group one. Okay. Hello, everyone. So we should be coming back now. And you should also have decided on who will be feeding back on your discussions so that yeah, okay. All right. So we did have 7 groups. So if we go by number of groups, that'd be easier. So who in group 1 is going to share with us the insights that you discussed in your group? Anyone from group 1? Someone said 10 minutes went so fast. Yes, it did. So anyone who's in group 1 will be talking. If you know who you are, you can just unmute yourself from group 1. Anyone from group 1?
Hello.
Okay. Yeah.
Hi everyone. Good
Hello.
morning.
Good morning.
The 10 minutes was really short for us for group 1. So we had a few we mentioned a few issues, but we're not able to finalize on the solutions, and then we just found ourselves back here. So I'll just mention the problems that we shared, and then maybe I'll speak briefly about the solution, since we didn't conclude on it as a group because the time is limited. Yes, but since we're all here to share ideas, it'll still be good to let you know what we discussed. So the main issue is nowadays, in our organization, even though every HR person would want to do more of employee wellness, the problem is getting management to buy into the idea. So in almost every organizational setting, sometimes we have cases where even employee furniture could be faulty, or the furniture is not user friendly. So the employees could sit and they would have back problems, report to HR. HR would gladly want to do something about it, but then management is also looking at costs here. Then the next thing is medical insurance. There are several companies without medical insurance packages for their employees, and this is an HR issue too. Then so like we discussed that sometimes because of these full medical insurance things, employees could fall sick, and because they don't have access to insurance, even paying their medical bills becomes an issue, and things like this. So now, even if it's not them, their dependents paying their dependents' medical bills also affects them psychologically, and then they cannot pull their weight, or they cannot give their best at the office. So, as a solution, for HR, you could do like maybe health seminars or health talk as part of your training programs, just to make employees also, or just to help them understand that probably you are giving your best. So health talk would also help them to take care of themselves well, so they don't even fall sick in the first place. Then next, you could also send in proposals to management, let them understand the cost implications. Sometimes they see it on the face value. If we are buying furniture, it's going to be expensive. If we are paying for medical insurance, it's going to be expensive. But if you take them to the other side of the cost benefits analysis, where you are showing them the real time effects of employee
Yeah.
absenteeism on the productivity or on the bottom line of the campaign, management will end up buying into it. Many a time, as when we are presenting problems to management for them to help solve, we don't really give them the financial aspect of it for them to understand that, okay, if we are going to do medical insurance, but it would also save us from high levels of absenteeism. And these things would also help us increase our profits in the long run. So implications of the let management understand that solving it would
Okay.
also help improve their bottom line. And when they get it from that limelight, they would be able to buy into the idea. So that is group one in brief.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Vanessa. So on the issues we talked, it was about the insurance, workplace equipment sometimes, and then on the solutions is health seminars, proposal to management with budget. Group two. Anyone from group two wants to feedback?
Yeah,
Anyone?
I think
Abigail.
yes, good morning, everyone. The time was short, and after gathering each and
HR has to work
everyone,
under pressure.
yes, we
Sometimes you have
couldn't.
to
I
solve
don't know
problems.
whether Sandra can say a word, but we didn't discuss much. As Vanessa indicated, we just mentioned some few issues, and
Okay.
I was reflecting on what Billy said, where she mentioned that when someone is sick, you just inform the person that, oh, a relative is sick, my wife is sick, and you just give the go ahead without probing. I think that is one of the challenges in my office, where we just give you the go ahead without probing. And also you realize that people are not willing to give out information when you try to probe, or you want to be too much concerned. They are not forthcoming with the information that we need to support them. And sometimes I don't think the person intentionally does that, but maybe society and how we see things, and how we imagining things, and the person may think that if I should say what is wrong with my family, or there will be issues around and confidentiality and all that. So it's very informations. And also on the medicals. The medicals, we normally do the liver, kidney, but Billy also mentioned about the mental and emotional medical. So I don't know how best you could go to a physician and tell the physician, how is it going to, I don't know, maybe I'm throwing this to you for support on that. How would you go to a physician and say that you want a mental, medical on emotional or mental, without going specifically to a psychiatrist or something? Because the moment you mention that, the perception about it, hey, then my HR think that we are getting mad, so we are going to the psychiatric to check our mental issues and all that. And I think Sandra also mentioned about stress-related issues and how people's words affect each other in the organization. So these are the things, but we were not able to probe into the feedback and how we want management to buy into all these things.
Don't worry, in the second bit, you'll be able to do that, okay? This was just to kind of just be able to pick out our issues. The second part is really where the HR has to really speak to. That's why I didn't really give much time here. Okay, so okay, so there was some good points coming here. The fact that sometimes as HR we don't probe, we are, it's approved and that's it. People not being forthcoming with information for whatever reason, that's also a challenge. Stereotype, you talked about the mental and emotional, I'll come back to that, and then the words that people are using. Just to answer the point you're making about the reference Billy made about emotional assessment, the medicals. These emotional assessments or mental assessments work at different level. If not, I'm assuming some of you may be aware, some of you may not, because it may not have come in your paths. But we have assessments at the HR, at the organizational level, which usually you have to be obviously certified to do these tools. And obviously I know because I'm an org psych. So we're certified to do stress assessment. These are tools. When I say tools, I mean they are standardized assessments that you would issue to an employee to complete. They work in a form of questionnaire, but you are able to determine from the answers, get a gauge as to where they are at along their stress levels and so on and so forth. Based on that, then of course you would now answers which are first level. Then the second level would be that someone like Billy would be the one who would have a much more in-depth assessment for whoever the employees are or the leadership are. So my point is that the emotional ones that we're talking about wouldn't be your normal physician. You would have to go to the wellness coaches or the psychotherapists because they have specific what we call tools, meaning assessments that they use to determine that, right? And they too are some of them as companies run these as part of medicals. Okay, so you have your organizational assessment level, which is what I'm mentioning to you, where, for example, if someone comes to me and they tell me they have a workload issue, they have a stress issue, I would initiate, right, that basic tool to help me gauge. And then I would probably direct that person to a Billy or whoever, right? So that's just to feedback on that point. Okay, so any more, maybe we take another group and then we'll move on to our second part, because I want you to, I think that's the bit that I want you to really focus on. Any other group that wants to feedback? Maybe group 3, well, we've done 1 and 2. Would group 3 want to say something in addition to what group 1 and 2 have said?
Okay, so yeah, Anita, so
yes. Hi, Peter.
Hi, Anita. For group 3, I think most of what has been mentioned already was some of the things we looked at. I just want to add the bit about harassment and victimization.
Yes.
You know, because this affects the mental health of the individual that we mentioned. Then the part of HR, we did mention, apart from what has been mentioned earlier, is for HR to have policies and processes in place to investigate some of these things that probably get reported, especially the harassment bit, so that HR must be seen as driving the mental health agenda, so that the employees will have confidence in HR in circumstances like this. There's one other thing that readily came to mind, which is practiced in my organization, which we didn't really discuss, and that has to do with conducting medical tests for staff, periodic medical tests, because we noticed in recent times that we've had young staff dying, and investigation shows that they had underlying sicknesses which they didn't even know, and they only came to the fore when it got worse. So it was decided that, look, every staff, at least in a year, go for a medical checkup. So that the medical conditions that are hidden will come to the surface. And then, because we have a medical unit headed by a chief medical officer who happens to be on the call here. So, so we really pay attention to that. So that's one thing that HR also do. I mentioned the bit about policies. One other policy that in our group we discuss has to do with policies that will look at flexi work hours.
Yes.
Because we believe that it's overworking affects leads to stress and eventually leads to what we're talking about. So probably we'll look at flexi work hours. And what HR can do with regards to management, we believe that, first of all, HR must push and be sure that they are at the executive table, or if not at the board level. And so things like this, they will push for the wellness agenda at this level. And we also mentioned the fact that it will be very important if we could get one of the executives who probably it's either a victim or somebody who whose staff are complaining about to sort of be a champion to get the wellness agenda going in the organization. All right. So basically, those are some of the things that we looked at, apart from what has been mentioned earlier by the other groups.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Peter. So now that exercise kind of got you thinking about some of the issues, right? And I did do some sums of it. So we are saying here that recognition or the need to promote workers' well-being may give rise to workplace problems. And some of the problems some of you have touched on: stress, bullying, conflict, harassment, alcohol and drug abuse, mental health disorders, anxiety, depression, right? So now we have to now look at ways in which we're going to address wellness in our environment, right? So these were just some examples of good ones that we could be doing, and we'll come back to that. But the next exercise that I want you to look at is that, you know, we've talked about
hello, Anita.
Yeah. Hi.
Can I come in briefly? 30 seconds.
Yeah, sure, Andrew. Yes.
Yep. So thank you. I know we are discussing the focal area where we are looking at the well-being issues at the workplace.
Yeah.
But I am finding it difficult to detach issues outside the office affecting the work. I mean, I don't know. For example, somebody who is having a bad marriage or bad relationship, whose parents are sick, whose kids maybe have terminal illness, financial issues, the economy. Can't these issues, even though they are not at the workplace, find its way into the workplace? I mean, that's my question.
Well, it does. And earlier on, we're talking to Billy. In fact, that was one of her first or second points that she made, which was about the home in a workplace. And she made the point of saying that there's probably a lot more of that sometimes than there is in terms of the workplace. So we were saying that because naturally, I mean, this is, as I said, we are having to evolve as leaders here. This wouldn't be something that we would even be thinking about, but we can now see that there is no dislocation here. It's connected. You know, if someone is having a bad marriage, you understand they're going through stress, they're going through distress. Definitely at some point, employees, their subordinates or their colleagues may suffer it. You see, so we're talking about prevention and support. What initiatives we put in to help people, right, regardless of whether it's to do with work or home. Are you with me?
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you.
Yes. So that's going to be our next exercise. Let me just bring it up. So now, in all of these things that we've been talking about, we've got to move to action, leaders, and we've got to move to meaningful action. A lot of the time, we have policies, we're not implementing it, but I think we've all agreed that this particular one, just like all the other functions, is very important because it impacts the human. So if we all understand the human resource, human capital management, we are to this particular issue we're discussing sits very much the human side. So in your next group, I want you to look at the wellness policy. And I want you to look at the wellness policy from a perspective that we believe in implementing a policy that is actually going to be working. All right. So in thinking about it, what should be going in your policy? What kind of activities, right, initiatives would HR propose to the leadership for approval? Right, what we need to take it into practical sense. So what is going to go in our policy? You all should know the process of policy statement, policy requirement, policy procedure. And then when we have outlined that, what is going to be the types of activities, initiatives, realistically, HR is going to propose. Then I want you to think about what three key business case, because leaders, I mean, you know, we've been discussing a lot of HR for many years now. In fact, I realized on the continent over a decade, right? For those of you who've been interacting with me all this period, and you know that the only way HR can get anything properly looked at and done is that we need to put a business case, right? A business case. So I want you to think about the 3 key points, right? I know there are many points, and I want you to narrow it down to 3 key points, business case points. And this is where your strategic thinking comes into it. So insofar as this has an emotional side, right, we also know that businesses are entities, are profit making, right? Some of you may be coming from sectors that are not profit making, but they are service orientated, and always the work will be priority, okay? So whenever we're putting business cases, we have to put cases that impacts the bottom line, i.e. we know that if we pick on the ones that they can see that we have to do this thing, because if we don't do it, it's going to affect what we do, they are more likely to pay attention. So I want you to think about the 3 minimum key business case points, and you must learn to do business case points, right? To convince management to provide budget for wellness, because some of these things we're talking about, there is no free here, right? We will have to invest some money and some time into it. So what would be your 3 key points that you would put in your business case? I know we can have more, but I just want to focus on 3 because because of our time, that you're going to use as your business case that you know will be impactful enough to convince management to adopt a wellness program that you're proposing, or the policy, and also to provide budget. And I'm always saying to you about budget. We don't go and put things without giving an estimated idea of costs. A lot of our things get put aside because we don't do this. So you need to, whatever you do, because I'm hoping that after this session, some of you will actually pick this up and you will actually go through the process. And when you do so, you will actually make sure that whatever you're proposing, you are estimating a budget for it, right? Because this has to become a practice in the organization. It's not an event, okay? So that's very important. Then I want you to think about metrics, okay? Many of you, I see all over the place, HR analytics, all of you, some of you, you've been through it, right? You've done it. You now need to be able to know when to rein in your analytics. If you're not tracking your initiatives and you're not tracking what you're doing, it's redundant, right? It means that we've gone through all these problems, put the business case, got it approved, and now we're not able to show impact, all right? And the only way we show impact is to track metrics, right? So that we can do analytics. So I want you to tell me, what metrics are you going to be tracking based on what you are putting as your policy, your proposal to management, okay? Because they have to align. We don't just pick metrics from anywhere. It must align with whatever framework you're proposing, okay? So what metrics are we tracking? What is these metrics supposed to tell us? How is it going to ensure we maintain or even increase the budget each year because we are able to show impact? HR must always be able to show value and impact from its initiatives, all right? So I want you to also look at that, all right? So this is going to be what you, as your next breakout, you're going to do. And I want you to really do your best to kind of work through this, because some of you, definitely, this is a new area for you. Some of you already have things, you're now thinking, okay, from this conversation, what can I improve? Whichever way you're standing, whether you have something in place, whether you're now going to think of putting something in place, you need to go through this process, right? Maybe you even want to enhance what you have in place, okay? This exercise will be good for you. So I'm going to break us into groups again, and then you are going to discuss what I've just said, okay? So with the policy, what should be in it? I'm reminding you that a policy should have statements, policy requirements, policy procedure, right? And then I want you to think about your annual calendar, your annual wellness calendar, activities, initiatives. What is it that you're going to be proposing? What is going to be estimated, right? I know you can't do budget here because you'd have to research, but at least we should, I want to see some budget consciousness in the responses that come. And then metrics, right? Metrics we're going to track in order, right, to be able to do analytics to show value and impact from the investments that have been made, right, concerning the wellness program. Okay, so, right, so I'm just going to shuffle you again into rooms, and it should, again, just like before, it should come up in front of you. All right, I'll give you a little bit longer for you to do this. So I'll give you like, let's say, what, about 15, 20 minutes, and then I'll come, I'll bring us all back to hear from some of you what you came up with. So I'm opening the rooms so that you can join. So in a few minutes, you should see it come up. All right, so just to remind you, you're looking at policy. In policy, we must have statement, policy requirement, policy procedure. And then we're going to propose what wellness initiatives, exercises, calendar that we want management to approve. And we're going to identify 3 key business cases to support our case to them to approve. And then I'm asking you on the metrics you're going to track to be able to report back on value and also on impact. All right, so I'm opening up the rooms now. So it should send your invite to join. So you just click and it should take you to your relative room. All right, to join your groups. Okay. If you don't have a room, if you just raise it to my attention, I'll just add you to a room. Okay. Okay, so I've seen people are dropping off into groups. If you have any problem joining a group, just bring it to my attention and I'll add you to a room. Okay, I have 3 people not assigned.
Madam, are we joining the same group or different groups now?
I think this is a different group Aris created. So you may have similar people from your previous group, but You have new people as well. Okay, so I can see those who've joined. Okay, so those who are not able to join or who are not joining, you just have to hold out with us till we return back. Okay. Those who were not assigned, I've assigned you to rooms. Okay. So we're going to be coming back in 15, 20 minutes time. It's about 10, 12, yeah. So if you're having problems joining a room, just let me know and I can just add you. Okay, so I'm going to join some of the groups to listen in. So you may see me go out.
Please, I can't hear. Oh, I can't hear the sound. Please help me out.
Hi, Godfrey. Actually, Madam Anita will be with us soon. I think she's off for a minute. She just joined in.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so those of you who are in the rooms and not in rooms, and you're in the main room, I should hear you discussing. You should be discussing, no? Are you going to have a discussion on the policy? So we're talking about wellness policy. Any ideas? I'm talking to those of you in the same room as me. Any ideas on what should be in your wellness policies? Or if someone has already got a wellness policy, maybe they want to share with us how that goes. So any inputs in my main group here? I've got Humphrey, Richard, Her Majesty, Mansa, Gloria, iPhone, PBK, Papa, Godfrey. Any contribution?
Sorry, Anita, I missed this session because I have interaction with my internet. So
Okay, okay.
if you can just summarize something for me, then
Okay.
probably I can.
So we're talking about wellness. We started the conversation with a wellness coach, Billy Richardson, and then they broke out to look at some of the issues in our workplace in terms of wellness issues, and they came back with some of the issues and some solutions. So the next part is that obviously, when we're looking at this, we need to look at what should our policy be, what types of exercises or initiatives should we be implementing. That's the exercise we're doing now, is to look at what should be in our wellness policy, what are some of the exercises or initiatives that we want to implement, and then coming up with at least a minimum of 3 very strong business case that we will put to management in order to get them to adopt our wellness policy, and of course our wellness programs. And then the last thing was that they should also think about metrics that they will track in order to report on the value or the impact of these wellness programs that the company would have agreed to invest in, right? So that's what we're really discussing in the groups. So
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so in this group, because we're here, I don't know what people's takes are on that. So I was welcoming the discussion here whilst we will be calling the others back in about another 5 or so minutes to share their. So anyone here?
With my view on the awareness, I work with production, that's agriculture. Mostly with awareness, we normally, I will suggest we add it to the occupational health and safety policy, because we have a list of, as we discussed earlier, I thought I was in group 1, but I was interacted with internet. So for me, with the health and safety is a key policy which so we in the agri sector use to safeguard and also provide certain awareness for our employees. So for me, it's, I think when we include or incorporate in the health and safety policy, it will help a lot because with the health and safety policy, we have a larger industry which we combine our health and safety policies to see key points where we can solve issues regarding such areas. So when such things are being adopted into the industry, it draws the attention of management, top management. So I think we should look at the safety side, particularly in the agri sector or probably the mining sector. I think that will be okay there. That's my point.
Okay. So coming from the agri side, what kind of wellness initiatives do you think your industry, like your leaders and staff could benefit from? Any ideas?
Come again, sorry.
I was just asking that you said you're working in the agricultural sector. So I was asking, do you have any ideas as to the types of wellness activities or initiatives you may want to implement or recommend for workers or managers for the organization you're working with?
Oh, okay. Okay, yes. Let me think through. I'll get back.
Yeah, okay, sure. All right. Anybody else want to add anything in we're just talking about here? Anybody want to add anything to what Richard was saying? Okay, so I'm giving the rooms another 2 minutes and then we're all coming in. Just open my screen. Okay.
Hello, Anita.
All right, so I'm closing the room so we can come back and discuss. So they all should be joining back now. Did someone want to say something? I heard my name.
Yes.
Hi, Richard.
So with wellness, I'm looking at the area of I deal with a lot of with female empowerment and innovativeness. We have workers who solely depends on the salary. And in my area, we have some of them taking care of the family, pressure on them with who are being traumatized with a lot of load and thinking. And when they come to work, psychologically they have low production. So what I was I will encourage them that we should give them education on entrepreneurship by creating other means of income, especially after work or probably where they stay. In a sense that selling goods and selling and buying goods will also help them to improve. Some places we give incentive packages to where hardworking employees, in a way that we have what we call some form of a credit union, which females who are attached to the workplace. In fact, it was created by the union together with some of management, which we initiate or we give loans for them to start up a business on their own while still working with the company, a side business to help relieve those set burdens on them and helping them psychologically to improve the production or the output or productivity of the work given to them and to meet the company's targets for the year. So these are some of the initiatives I think also help other companies.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Okay. That ain't okay. Is everyone back now? I think most people are back now. Okay, so Richard, I'll come back to some of the points you raised there. All right, so we're all back. I'm hoping that some of you did actually have conversation around this, because I can tell you that wellness is a big deal. You heard Billy mention when she started that it should be at the top of our organization in terms of HR priorities. And she was absolutely right. Even if you're in an organization where this doesn't seem to be on the agenda and you're the HR, I would encourage you to make it your agenda. You know, I'm always championing proactive HR leaders. I don't see the point in being an HR manager where you are not proactive, you're not leading anything, you're not creating any impact. This is one of the areas that you can really, really make an impact, because ladies and gentlemen, I mean, the world is in crisis, right? People are being displaced. People are going through very, very serious difficulties, even in our own environments here on the continent. And as we've established, the human side has to come in. And now as HR, we are expected to work beyond our policies and come out beyond our departments and our offices. Like, we have to engage, right? And this is one area that we have to really take seriously, because if your staff are not happy, you all know it, they are going to leave, they are going to be on sickness, it's going to affect their performance, we still carry problem, right? So we have to proactively take note of this particular issue we're having a discussion on. It's so important. It's so important that now all businesses and organizations who know what they're about have gone so far as making sure that their leadership are even being trained on not just empathetic leadership, but to understand the importance of also taking note of the wellness and well-being of their followers, of their employees, whom they are leading, right, or managing. So it's a very, very important issue. And in this issue all over, HR is a key leader, driver of this area. Okay, so I really want to encourage you to see that this hits our bottom line very, very hard. And it is one of the areas HR can add a lot of value. And it doesn't have to start with lots and lots of money. It just starts with basic initiatives and you can just grow it. All right, but you must take it seriously. You know, I will usually pick topics that are strategic and that are at your bottom line. Other areas, you are all on top of your administration, but this is where we're talking impact and value, right? This is where you need to be thinking beyond the administration. So I'm really trying to encourage you to not leave here and just it become one session you attended. I'm expecting you to take action, because you throw my stone at me, right? Those of you who are in the right networks, you know that this is a big deal, right? All over. So we've got to pick it up. So I want to just ask for some feedbacks. I'll ask for different areas so that we're able to get all the feedback from different perspectives. So the first part of the discussion was for you to look at what should a wellness policy look like based on the discussions we've had right up to this point. What should a wellness policy look like? And I mentioned that with all policies, when you're developing them, you should have a policy statement, policy requirement, policy procedure, right? So what were some of the ideas around statements, requirements that some of you maybe discussed or want to share with the wider group? And then we'll move to the next area of the exercise. So please, if you want to feedback, just put your hands up and then I will, you can speak. Right, so who is ready to share? Anyone on the types of what we need to be considering in our wellness policy? Any of the groups?
Okay, Sandra.
Sure.
All right, so for our group 5, we spoke about, or we discussed the policy statement and what we thought it should say or what it should look like is that the policy should seek executive management's commitment to wellness and then to ensure employees are healthy physically, financially, and then also mentally, which is most important when it comes to wellness. We didn't really speak about requirements. What we spoke about was the objective of the policy. And so we thought about the fact that it needed to, the objective has to be that the policy needs to promote a healthy work-life balance, and then also check the overall wellness and then enhance productivity of the employee. Yeah, and then also under procedure, we looked at having an overview of the policy first, and then we thought we should have accessibility, how to assess these, what do you call it, avenues or activities that are going to help in terms of scope, eligibility, etc. And then we said the guidelines. We didn't have time to dissect, but after guidelines, we thought there should be also privacy provisions and then reimbursement provisions as well, and then perhaps exceptions in certain cases. And then we spoke a little bit about HR's activities or initiatives, most of which we had already mentioned in the previous session: medical checkups, screenings, trainings, also sessions for regular engagement, and then awareness campaigns or intentions for staff, such as pop-up discussions where they would invite maybe an expert to talk about what options they had to deal with such wellness issues. Yeah. And then the last thing that we also spoke about was the key business points, the bottom line. I think Peter mentioned it would reduce hospital visits and costs for the business, for the employee, and then it would also improve morale, and we could also look at having a high retention rate in terms of keeping our employees happy and the company also productive as well in terms of performance. That's basically our discussion.
Thank you. That was very good. Some very good points and very good suggestions there coming from you, Sandra and her team. Anyone else want to add anything to that before we move on to some areas of in terms of active initiatives? I wanted to make a point on the requirements. The requirements are usually, the criteria that you're setting. So in this instance, you may look at things like maybe specifying who's eligible for wellness, depending on what you're putting in the policy, who's eligible for wellness, to be part of the wellness program. Is there a serving time before you can? How you are, those kind of requirements that we're talking about. So maybe wellness program is for all employees, right? And maybe you must have pass your probation or something. I'm just trying to give you examples of requirements. It may be that to participate in wellness activities, physical activities, you must first, see your doctor or something. So just the requirements to guide that policy and initiatives that you may be implementing, right? So you want to think about that. Okay, so the second part of the exercise was that we wanted to look at some initiatives and exercise or activities. Did any of the other groups look at the types of wellness activities or initiatives that we could actually consider to propose to management? So if your group did, please raise your hands and share with us some of the activities, right, or initiatives that you discussed. Okay, Abigail, I can see your hand is up. Then maybe Sandra wants to add.
Yes. Our group, some of the activities our group mentioned was providing medical assistance to employees. This is not really on the health insurance. This is where we've already hooked the staff on the health insurance, and there is a major issue, example like a cancer or something, where the staff is not able to walk through that process, or surgery outside the country or something. We are proposing that this also organization can really innovative ways to support staff to be able to get medical attention. Then we also talked about financial awareness. And we all know how the economy is going, and this can really also affect people.
Yes.
And there is a need for the organization to really put in place a financial awareness where there should be somebody to talk to the employees or staff on how to manage their finances, and also to be able to lead on how things are going in the country, so that people will tame down this. The situation going on is really, some people are having heart attacks and all that. So
Yes.
getting somebody to really come and speak to it, some people have invested a lot. So I think the initiative of having a financial awareness also is good. I think my colleagues, if you have something to say, we talked about, I think, 4 other things, but I'm mentioning the 2 so that other colleagues also can mention the rest. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Abigail. Did anybody else want to add anything to what she said? Anybody else from the other group? Okay. All right. So now, when I go on to the other slides, there are further suggestions there, but you do need to think about your initiatives, okay? So we know that, yes, medical is one, but we're talking about wellness, how people keep their mental and physical and emotional health, right? So you also have to think outside of the box on activities, okay? Which I have some on the next slide. So things like having happy hours, right? Things like having quarterly time out, work and happiness, right? Where people, you go out to have fun. It could be just in teams. If the whole organization kind of teams can be moving out. Is it some kind of fun day at a Brick Park or Legon Park? Is it some kind of sports day? You know, we need to think of activities that is in a workplace that the staff can get involved in. Is it, we talked about stress days and wellness days. When I get on now, maybe I elaborate on that a little bit more. But I need you to think about outside of the box, and you should think about both cash and non-cash activities. So things that require budget, things that kind of really don't require budget, right? Or are low in budget, okay? So if we did, as part of our wellness, we looked at healthy lunch. Every last Friday of every month, everybody must eat a healthy lunch or every week. You know, let's be creative, right, as practitioners in terms of the types of very simple activities we can be doing, but they're going to be having an impact. They're going to be impactful, right? We talked about wellness champions, okay? If we're not big enough or we can't do the champions, can we have wellness buddies? Can we encourage wellness buddying? So each employee should find someone who's their buddy that they can, when they feel a bit stressed out, when they feel they need, they can talk to. Let's begin to think outside the box in some of the things that we can do that are practical, that can very easily be implemented, that doesn't require so much stress to approve. And then of course we have to look at some of the bigger picture, which is the medicals or some of the pharma ones I was mentioning to you, right? So I want you to kind of think about this point that I've made. And then if anyone from this point is having further ideas, kindly raise your hand so you can share it with us. We must think about initiatives and activities that can help our employees, you know, with their emotional, their physical, do you understand, and mental well-being in the workplace that the employer can apply at, you know, affordable, or sometimes may not even require funds, just timing and planning from the HR. So anybody here, even maybe you already have a wellness plan, what are some of the activities or initiatives that you've implemented? Any suggestions? Comments or ideas on the types of activities we could be doing? I'm giving you some that should trigger you.
Okay, Anita, yes, sorry.
Peter, yeah.
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, we're still developing our policy around wellness, but we've started some activities already. First has to do with we run quarterly. That's the target, but at times we do it more. Quarterly HR clinics where we invite various professionals, be it psychologists or wherever, to talk to the staff. We use the Team or Zoom often. Thanks to COVID, we now use the Zoom. So early morning, normally between 7 and 8 a.m., we run these clinics. And so for wellness programs, we do run this awareness and at least quarterly. And then in recent times, in actual fact, this week, we started doing a countrywide medical screening of all staff. And the aim is to, like I said earlier, identify, if any, underlying medical conditions which staff probably are not aware of because we've not intentionally gone to the clinic to check. And this has been the cause of recent deaths that we've experienced from staff. So it was a bit easier to go to management and say, look, this is happening, and we think this is the reason. Can you give us a budget to run this? And it didn't take us that long to get approval to get this run. We are also looking at the training line managers to identify and manage conversations around wellness, because we believe that there are times when staff, somebody mentioned that, look, when the wellness is not just about what's happening in the office, but what may have happened at home or may have happened outside the office. So when the staff walks in, that line manager should be able to know a mood change and should be able to engage the staff to see how best some of these things can be looked at. So basically, these are just some of the things that we're doing in my space to get the staff, the wellness agenda going.
Fantastic. Okay, Pearl, I can see your hand is up. Do you want to add to what Peter just said?
Yes. So at my institution, what we started doing this year was the last Friday of every month, we just do like a get together. It's not so after work, after 3, we just maybe just cook or look for anything that makes us happy. So after 3 o'clock, if it's even Gary that we want to soak, we all come together, we soak Gary, we eat, have fun, and the day ends, then we go. So we realize that it's actually working. So when the last Friday of the month is coming, then everybody starts coming. Oh, so this week, this Friday, what are we doing? And it brings us all together. So last Friday of every month, we just come together. If it's even a Coke that we want to drink, we all come together, contribute, and just have fun after work, and we all go home for the weekend. And we realize that it's actually working for us. So everybody looks up to that last Friday of the month just to have fun. Then this year, I've also introduced something like talk to the HR. So
okay, talk to the HR. That's
where we just ask any question. It's not solely like work related. So we have morning meetings where staff can just ask any question. Ask the HR any question that they think is bothering them. So we realize that it's not only about work. People bring their family issues, people bring personal issues, and we just answer them. We sit down as if it's not work. So we are just having a conversation, and it's working for us. So these are the 2 things we have introduced this year, and I think it's more or less helping us to actually understand our staff and also know them, and also know their needs and how we can be able to help them. And I must say that for me, I am basically happy because we weren't doing it, and when we introduce it, we realized it's helping us. So I think it's something we'll continue to do.
Fantastic. Thank you, Pearl. So as you guys are talking, I'm making notes, and I'll just recap it at the end. Okay, so that's giving us some examples of what people are already doing. The last Friday get together. Peter mentioned about quarterly HR clinic awareness. And, I'm liking hearing the talk to the HR because, guys, you even heard Billy mentioning it, right? And she's working in organizations where employees are going to her to speak to. The perception of the HR, I'm always talking about visibility, credibility. You have to work on it because if employees and leaders don't see the department as credible, they don't see it as approachable. And approachable, we say department, meaning there may be more than one person in it. But if you're also just the HR person alone, right? Or you're a team, when we say department, I'm talking to all of you, right? If you're not approachable, if you're not friendly, if you're just stuck in the office all the time, if everything that comes to you is just down the line policy, if employees deem you to be on the side of that you've taken sides and you're on the side of the management, or the management think you've taken side and you're on the side of the employees or the union, all these types of perceived views are very dangerous for our department. So I'm encouraging you that you have to brand the HR. I mean, we have to do a session on what we mean by branding the HR department. The HR department is a brand, just like marketing, just like sales, just like finance. How are you branding your HR department? If I walked into your department now, will I feel comfortable to sit down? Do I want to even come and talk to you? If I saw you coming towards me, would I dodge you? Will I embrace you? If you saw me dodging you, would you explore to try and find out why I'm dodging you? Right? Like it's very important because people are not going to come to us. These things we're talking about requires trust. It requires feeling comfortable, feeling that you're in a safe place, right? And some of us, to be honest with ourselves, we've not been trained for some of these things. It's all new, it's even hard, right? So there is an argument that HR itself needs to build its capacity when it comes to employee relations. You understand? Dealing with employee relations, dealing with employee wellness, you yourself need to have that training and understanding so that you can embrace some of the things you can do within your strength and not. But it really starts with the perception of the HR department as well. Because all these things we're talking about, if in your organization, the HR is seen as some lion, all these things we're talking about, then it's a problem. So I'm very happy to hear talk to the HR. That's saying HR is being open, is encouraging you to come and talk to the HR. HR awareness clinic, you understand, where we're bringing awareness on different issues that employees may be bringing through suggestion boxes, or is coming through from line managers, or we ourselves are picking up and we are trying to address them. All helps the HR to look good. But this area is sensitive, you all know it. If we don't have that rapport or that foundations in, it's going to be very difficult, right? For us to address this issue on wellness. That's why I'm highlighting it, okay? So we need to also look at the credibility, the visibility, the whole perception and branding of the HR in our organization, because that will also let people know whether they think we can actually handle this topic we're talking about, whether we can actually help them address their wellness issues, all right? Okay, so the next part of the exercise was the business case, right? 3 key things that we would put as the business case to the management in order to convince them, get them to buy into our wellness policy, and then of course our wellness activity, our strategy of what we're going to do. Did anyone discuss that?
Yes, Anita, our group discussed that and we came up with, I think, 3 main issues.
Yes.
The first one is the branding of the organization.
Yes.
It helps with the positive branding of the organization as one who cares and all that. I mean,
that's the employer
the employer
value,
brand.
the employer, yeah, okay.
Yeah, the employer brand. So for the same reason that some of us will spend money on CSR activities and so on, it's important that we do some of these things internally so that it helps with the branding. I mean, these things help with they usually come about by word of mouth and so on. So it goes into the next business case, which is that of attraction and recruitment. Okay, it helps you to attract certain kinds of employees and so on. Okay, so it helps with your recruitment and selection activities. And obviously the third one would be that of productivity. There's a very clear line between employees who are happy and a productive organization. So those are the 3 main ones. I mean, it could be broken down into several other strands, but these are the 3 main reasons. Yeah.
Fantastic. Any more? So we have employer brand, we've got attraction and acquisition and recruitment, and we've got productivity. Any more on business case that impacts the bottom line?
Yeah, you can add employee engagement to that. Okay, so employees feel they will better engage. Yeah, if you do such things. Yeah.
Any more suggestions on this strategic wise that we can put as a business case? Remember, we said, well, we do this as well, we must include budget forecasts or estimations or research to support whatever initiatives we're putting in support of our business case. Any more?
Yes, Anita, I think my colleague, the gentleman mentioned it, but one other statement that you can add is, so we said the employer brand, to be the employer of choice. You know, it's a good bragging option that, look, in my organization, employee health and well-being is paramount. Everybody would like to join you. So, and also, I mean, most multinationals and even these young people, millennials, Gen Zs, they look out for these. These are the smart people who are top of the. And once they have this, they are satisfied. They just want to see a policy, clear policy statement to make that we take care of your health, total health, including mental care, and how they state it, how the organization states it and handles it. It's a big attractive points that we can always leverage on. Yeah, thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you. So we had some suggestions there. So the employer brand, acquisition, productivity, employee engagement, have all coming in. The employer brand, focusing on activities of being employer of choice. Because that's very important. You can have a good brand, but you may not necessarily be what people are deeming as employer of choice. The employer of choice very much also and maybe that's something some of you may want to look at, sits with your employer value proposition, your EVP. So that would also need to be looked at if you're looking at your brand and if you're now trying to move to be choice. So having a wellness, having in our employer value proposition that wellness and well-being is an important factor the company or the organization sees are very essential for the well-being of its employees. Speak to you and be an employer of choice, because people want to feel that it's not just about the work, you also care about them. So some of you may also want to look at your value proposition. If you're going to push this agenda of wellness, should you have a statement in the value proposition, and then of course some initiatives around the strategy to support that, all right? Okay, so now the last one was on metrics. So, with every area of the functions of the HR that we're discussing, or we're trying to improve, we need to have metrics that we're tracking. I've always said, and I said earlier that some of you maybe not all of you, some of you have done HR analytics, training, workshops and programs. So you should have some good familiarity around the when we're talking about metrics in order for us to be able to do analytics. Okay, so did anybody look at that? Was any group, or if we didn't look at it as a group and you have an idea, that's fine. You can also share with us some of the metrics that you would want to look at in this area. Did anyone have a look at that?
So Anita, once again, yeah, we did a bit of that.
Okay.
So you want to look at the utilization rate of some of the initiatives and the kind of access that you're going to give to staff. So for instance, if you are going to be having talks by experts on these psychological issues and so on and so forth, you would want to track how many staff actually attend, which is very basic. I mean, it's just a basic one. And then you would also want to look at, you want to look at the thereafter, I mean, which is more important, like the absence rates and so on. If you have current data, you'd want to compare with data for the same period of time to see whether there have been improvements and so on. You would also want to look at well, the budget itself must be realistic so that it covers the need for bringing experts if you are going to use any diagnostic tools and so on. They must cover some of those ones. So I think, yeah, so generally utilization, participation, absences and other sickness rates and so on. And then the budget itself, how well are you utilizing the budget? Usually if the budget is well done, it means that you should be able to spend 100% of it.
So with the budget, are we looking at return on investment, right? ROI.
Oh yeah, certainly. Right. Yeah, which comes with the productivity and which is another metric. I agree that I know that some productivity metrics are easier to in certain organizations that are easier to measure, but yeah, you try and make it as measurable as possible, and and track that one as well. So that's what we discussed in our group. Thank you.
Thank you. So before I ask if anyone wants to add any more, so we had Nana Kamala mentioned in their group, they talked about utilization rates. So as simple as, like if we're going to say we're going to do we're going to do a wellness awareness once every quarter, right? We may now want to track how many of our employees are attending these wellness programs every quarter. It could be something as simple as that, right? It talks about absence rates. So let's say if we've been tracking our absence data already, i.e. reasons for absence, etc., and we knew that people were off sick because they had headaches, anxiety, stress, after we initiated, stress days or initiatives to bring it down, we want to look at the absenteeism rate. So basically, as you already know and should know if you've done analytics, that before you start your framework, you must have a baseline. So you have a comparator, right, for the data. So if you've been collecting absenteeism rate, you should be able to see whether it's calmed down or nothing has happened, in which case you will now be able to look into why, right? And then he talked about budget utilization. Really here, we were talking about return on investment. And you'll be able to see whether there is a return on investment outside of the return investment and calculation for analytics, you will also look at the results under absenteeism, the utilization rates on the other, any other metrics you may have to measure value or impact, okay? So even productivity would be that. So if we looked at the fact that maybe before we started, our productivity wasn't great, but after we've done some of these, it's gone up because people are in a better place, then of course that's a good investment in terms of the budget that has been given, right? So ROI looks at the outcomes of these metrics that you're tracking, absenteeism and so on. But yes, absolutely, productivity is one you'd have to look at. So you're either going to use productivity indexes or rates. It depends on how you're measuring productivity now in your organization, right? Any more? But yes, these are good metrics. Any more? Any more that we can keep it very simple. You know, I always say keep it simple so that we all understand. It doesn't have to be complicated. Any more? Metrics that people think we should be looking at. Okay, all right. Okay, so I'm going to move to close because I'm hoping that everyone has gotten the gist of what we're saying. So I'll wrap up with some highlights. So when we talked about the wellness policy, just to remind you that, you know, I really want you, those of you who haven't, and I'm assuming you've sat in all this time with me because you know that this is important and you want to do something about it, all right? So I'm saying that there should be a policy, right? And then you should have a wellness strategy, right? As well, which will come from your initiatives and activities you want to put. If you have an HR strategy, right? There should be a wellness element in that. But for the purpose of the policy, you should make sure there's a policy statement, there's a requirement, and then the procedure as to how it's implemented. Then some of the things you could be including in the policy would be things like awareness days, sessions, right? Awareness days, those of you who do staff Durbers, it can be part of your Durbers, or you can create it as a wellness exercise by itself, right? Making sure that part of this, an annual budget should form part of the policy, that a budget will be proposed for approval. We want to get the leadership buy-in, and we, at the beginning, me and Billy, we talked about it and we said the leadership buy-in is not just about them approving budget or approving the policy or even your strategy. It's about them, your initiative should include the CEO or the Director General, whichever sector you're coming from. You should include the leaders, the managers, the supervisors. They all should be part of the initiative. It shouldn't be a case of wellness is all of, it's just for the employees who are not in management. No, it's for everybody. So they get the buy-in, and then there should be initiatives for them too, in order to sustain, right? Then we said annual calendar activity, you need to be clear. There should be some that are repetitive, right? It's known to the organization because you want to show your commitment to wellness. That may be your awareness day, which may include a different walk days, etc. You should have some fixed ones, and then you should have some flexible ones that maybe you change and add each year, all right? Now, other options are things like happy hours. Happy hours can be weekly, daily, quarterly, it's really up to you. And this can be done departmentally. People are having, let's have a happy hour of sharing. What's been our most stressful week issue? How can, suggestions, there's just so many ways you can deal with happy hour. Lunch meetups, etc. The idea of this is to get people bonding and talking and coming out of the space of work, but even though they're within work, all right? Stress days are a good one. Basically, it's one that we have, in fact, I've added to, or even at OML. And the stress days are where someone just wakes up and it's just like, you know what, I'm just gonna be anxious, or I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed, and they just need to have a day off. But you specify, when you have a stress day, what should you do? Is it, you must relax, you must do, go here, like just to guide people. So it's not just a case of I'm having a stress day, but I'm just sitting at home. I'm just, no, it's supposed to solve a problem. It's supposed to encourage you to address whatever is causing you the stress or anxiety. There's also wellness leave, wellness day, right? Again, you define or when we mean by wellness day, that you should have a spa or a massage, you should read a book, you should define for employees. They are not always very good at figuring these things out for themselves. So if you define what we mean by wellness day, stress day, what should I be doing? That helps, right? And so when the person comes back, we can also ask just generally, what did you do on your wellness day or your wellness leave or your stress day? Right, just give me some suggestions. We already had the mention of flexible working. Introducing flexi work is good, right? As well, because it allows people to have a bit of balance, and where the workplace is a bit pressurized for them, it gives them a bit of a break, right? And you know, all the stuff we've talked about around flexi, how it can work. Mandatory lunch and break. Sometimes we've got this lunch thing there, but a lot of people are not taking their lunch breaks. People are not even taking the short breaks to even just walk around, just get away from your desk, get away from your workspace. We don't encourage that, but we now can see that just because they are sitting behind there doesn't mean they are being productive. Do you get what I mean? So can we make people actually take lunch away from their desk? Even me, who I'm speaking, I'm guilty of that at times, and actually, go out, go for a walk, go and stand somewhere else in the workplace, right? Having lunches together, the bonding helps people to be able to share with others more, right? Healthy lunches, breakfast. If you're offering meals, why don't we have a healthy lunch, a healthy breakfast once a month, once every 2 weeks, once a week? I don't know what the budgets are, but healthy lunch and breakfast are also there. Employer assistance programs are there where you could tap into the likes of Billy, the apps that I mentioned. I think somebody asked a question about what types of apps. I will share that so that if others are interested in checking them out. We said I put counseling session here, but we're saying that we should use things like coaching, wellness coaching, wellness support, and all of that services. You can get some of them with the EAPs, or you can also tap into service providers who offer that, right? And then these apps as well, you can subscribe to them. So these are some options, and there are lots of things. If you sat down right now and started brainstorming, you'd be shocked as to the types of wellness things that, and I've tried to stay away from the traditional one intentionally, like the gym and all of that. I've tried to stay away from them because we already know them. So we want to look at other things, right? So in conclusion, right, I want to say that I think that we've all seen that health is life. So we must prioritize, is what you should say, wellness and well-being in a workplace. And HR must champion, right? HR must champion this. This particular function of the HR is one of the functions of HR will not move without HR. It will not move, right? For it to move, HR leader needs to pick it up and make it move, right? It has to move, because right now, we were talking about solutions, and I want to highlight the ones that I felt is one that, again, as you go away, this one doesn't cost you anything, you can do. The point that was made about financial literacy awareness is very important. People are in crisis. The mere fact they're not coming to tell you, you all know it. This is the first time ever in a long and ever, right, that as HR people, when staff are asking for salary increases, when people are, we are struggling to argue because we ourselves are feeling it. We ourselves can see it, all right? So financial awareness, how to budget in your household, how to spend money, how to save is crucial, right? That we put this as part of our wellness, because financial is one of the biggest stress situation for everybody. So you may want to say, right, moving away, if I don't do anything, I should look at how I'm going to bring financial literacy awareness to the staff, to the leadership. It's from everybody, right? It's one. This whole idea of the HR clinic, HR being open, the idea of wellness coaches, wellness champions. These are some of the things I think you should be thinking about how you could look at it in your organization, right? I just wanted to highlight those ones. And then in conclusion as well, Billy made mention that we have to start from the top, the leadership. We have to focus on prevention. Prevention is where our policy initiatives and strategies come in, when we are being proactive, right? And then we ourselves right now, I'm expecting all of you to begin to familiarize yourself a bit more with wellness. So you yourself understand what it's about and what you can do with it. There was a recommendation of if we're going to use wellness coaching sessions, 1 session per month is there if there's budget for. There was also that. And then we talked about if we're going to have champions or buddies, we need to make sure that they're empathetic, they can be discreet and confidential, non-judgmental, approachable, and they've had some kind of training in wellness and in how to be champions. And those who are in that field, the therapists and that usually can do the trainings in that. Rotating the champions weekly, right, or monthly, depending on your size. And then also the champions can play the role of just dealing with surface problems, right? Maybe people just to talk to, for them to direct them for a more deeper help. Okay, just to remind you. She also said that from her sessions, one of the things she's noticed is that personal neglect comes back to Andrew's point about the fact that someone may be having marital problems, maybe having financial, personal issues, right? And Billy made mention of that being a personal neglect. So it means HR has to be mindful. We must calm ourselves down when people are not performing, when people are not coming to and begin to inquire, right? Why? We're not probing to the point the person feels uncomfortable, but we must find the gentle words and questions to just understand, right? What may be the cause and then what course of action we can take. Just wanted to mention that. And then the last one on the leaders was on sleep. So our leaders sleep, their needs in terms of mindfulness, that sometimes their personalities are aligning with their job, and that also causes them a lot of mental health issues, meaning stress and anxiety, right? And some of them even down to depression. So when you're thinking about all of these policies and things, I'm just re-highlighting some of the key things we've talked about today. You need to be thinking about some of these things. The other thing was on emotional support, being the way we communicate as to using some of the traditional words like counseling and psychotherapist. And she said that a lot of people have a lot of stress they've not dealt with emotionally. And that is a trigger and a driver to a lot of the issues. And that can even affect physical health. And she made mention that someone may be hybrid approach. So that means if you want to use the apps should be there, but we should also encourage the face-to-face interactions as well. So a hybrid approach to wellness management is what we talked about. We also highlighted that our male staff, males in our workplaces are probably needing more emotional support than women, because contrary to what we sometimes think, men are supposed to behave a certain way, whether they are home or at work. And that brings a lot of pressure, a lot of things they don't get an opportunity to address. So we need to look at how we encourage our male employees, male leaders, to tap into some of these services to help them be able to become better leaders, better colleagues, right? And to also help them resolve some of the issues. But she made mention that, that we need to focus on, and I think if we're talking about gender equality and all of that, this is something that it flagged for me in terms of actions around this issue, right? And that HR must be very clear. If you have that training or you have that NARC, and you're going to engage people, please let's not engage people with judgmental approach. Mental health is not about people walking on the street. That there's some mental health happens for a whole lot of issues. It can be anxiety, depression, it can be stress. Let's not be judgmental and be mindful of the words we use when people are sharing with us some of these things, right? And then lastly, she said, the human component is what we need to focus on. Educate and sensitize ourselves and others on the wellness, right? And we have to change the way we see wellness, the way we deal with things to do with mental health. We've got to change our own perception, our own biases, and our own stereotypes that is sitting with us in order to help our employees as we're talking about. And she made suggestions of things like Wellness Day being like gym, good food, exercises, and all of that. The last one is the extreme, where we are not able to see, or for whatever reason, it may not necessarily be our fault, but things happen where people can hide things. She mentioned about suicide, and she actually made reference to quite a few men committing suicide. And usually when they get to that point, they feel there's no hope. Please, we want to do our best to make sure that in as far as possible, nobody has to get to that point, which is why I'm saying wellness will only move if HR moves, okay? So that's just some of the highlights there. I'll try and see if I can actually do this as a summary document and share it, because I took quite a lot of notes there. But that's just some of the summary for those of you who joined us later, and those of you who've joined me right from the very beginning to this point. I'm going to end here and just highlight what I think is your HR actions. So if you're moving here, you want to review your current wellness or well-being status if you don't already have. If you do, you review. If you don't, you review. And then maybe you want to survey your employees for their views. And then maybe you want to now look at putting your policies and strategies and initiatives together and report that with your proposal to management with an estimated budget. Don't forget the business cases that we've talked about. And then also the proposal should also define some of the metrics that you will use to track progress and results of the initiatives. So, and then you must report on your progress, your HR reports, and then keep reviewing and updating. For us at OML, we can help with things like wellness issues. When you have things like bullying, harassment happening in the workplace, we can help with hearings, coaching on how to handle them. We can help review your wellness policies for you, and also definitely for team building and retreats and facilitating leaders, particularly on their wellness and all of that. We can also help you with that if you are interested. And on that note, I want to say thank you. Okay, we started off with about over 65 people, and 21 of you have carried on to this point. So I'm clapping for you and saying thank you so much for doing so. And I really, really hope you will initiate some of these. And I really would encourage those of you who do to actually reach out to me with some of the things that you do, so that I can also mention you and highlight. I feel like as practitioners, we're not sharing enough, right? We're not empowering ourselves enough on things that we're doing. So please, if you implement anything, do connect with me, right? Whether it's on the WhatsApp, on the social handles, call, so that I know what you've done, so that we can share, so people can see that we're actually doing a lot around this area. I cannot emphasize strategically the importance of this topic that we're talking about today. And I want to thank all of you that have attended. And I hope that you will go back and share with your other colleagues, and you will actually take some of the actions on here. We will upload the recording onto our YouTube channel for those who want to go back and re-listen, and also share the links for those who are not able to join us. All right. So I want to take this opportunity to thank all of you once again. It's been a pleasure. And I hope to see you at our next webinar. You know, I am doing these at the moment quarterly because of not having a lot of capacity to do more than that. So I hope to see you at our next topic. And I'm trying to pick topics that are, as I said to you, that it helps HR to add value, that is currently very relevant and trending globally, right? That is also happening on our continent, and that you should, as leaders, be also looking at. Okay, so I know my topics may not always be in line with some of you. Some of you like a lot of the day-to-day stuff, but those ones maybe you have to capture maybe on our IG or LinkedIn type activity. But for the webinar series, these roundtables, we're trying to focus on things that impact the bottom line. And the same way for the CEO group that I do for the time with the CEO, is all on strategy and the higher levels of the HR, trying to get them to understand the HR from their perspective, but mostly from where we're coming from, and then from them as decision makers. All right, so for me, from that, if you get the leaders and you get the practitioners, we should get a better ensyncement. Okay, so I hope that you will be attending these, and I hope that you find them useful when you do attend in terms of learning, right? And that you'll be able to apply some of these when you go back into your work environment. You can't always connect and reach out to me. I'm very easy to be found. If you have any questions or you want to run anything by me. All right. So on that note, thank you so much for spending these hours with me. I really do appreciate your time and your commitment. Wishing you a very good day and a very good rest of the week. And I'll see you at our next roundtable virtual discussion. Thank you so much. And we'll share the links. We'll definitely share the links to the recording in the groups, all right? And on our social handles as well. Thank you so much. Have a good day. All right. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Anita, for the job. We are grateful. Thank you.